and use the economy and money to your advantage. We've had several seminars. We have another one coming up sometime in June, where we're talking about budgets and investing and how to put money aside to invest. And so if anybody is interested in that, I would highly suggest you keep track of the NAACP website, and you'll see all the information. It'll probably be conducted here in the library, over in the library section. And our whole mission is just to present to you information to help you grow financially. And so our mission this morning is going to be talking about home ownership. And I'm very, very pleased to see the number that have turned out, because it is a critical factor, and it might not be something you can do, but perhaps you can take the information you learned today and just share it with somebody else. The earlier we get into the economy and budgeting and home ownership, the better, because it gives you time. If you are like me, I'm retired, so my time is not very long. But I'm pleased to know I've done some things in the past to allow me to be able to retire. And I often talk about some of the younger people, don't have one of the things that I grew up in, and some of you did, and that's in a world where companies would give you a pension. So you, at the end of your time, you had, not only did you have Social Security as a steady income, but you also had a pension that would allow you. It's gone. If you work for a company that gives you a pension, you are truly blessed. And hang on to that job, because companies just cannot afford to do it. But what happens is the responsibility for your future is no longer in their hands, it is in your hands. And the earlier you get started, the better you off on the long end. When it comes time to be looking at 65 and 70 and 75, we're finding ourselves we have to work longer, right? Because we just cannot afford to stop working and with the income. But if you plan and know how to put your money aside and to build yourself a nest egg, then you're well ahead of the game. 401 plans? 401k. Anybody in them? Yeah. There it is. Have to. And try your best to maximize the amount of money you put in, because that's going to pay off. Does anybody know about compounding? Okay. Very, very powerful tool. And the way compounding works is you put an amount of money into a plan. That money draws interest. That interest gets added to the money that you started out with. Therefore, the next month, next year, the amount of money that you have in that plan is greater, because now you have the interest added to it. And so if you think in terms of 20 years, at the end of 20 years, you could be halfway to $1 million, depending upon how much money you put aside. But you have to start. You can't wait till the 99th hour and say, okay, I want to get into a plan. I want to start compounding. Start early. And for parents, get your kids thinking in terms of saving and putting money aside. We are a great consumable group. We like to buy stuff. But we don't do very well in putting money in investments and being able to take advantage of compounding and so forth. Vital piece of information that you have to do. And it all really starts with budgets. If you're not doing and working a budget, then you are missing the point. And if you're not doing it, then you keep an eye on our June session, where you can learn some things about budgeting and how easy it is, so that you don't have to do paycheck to paycheck. And that's really what we kind of get caught up in. Okay? As you can see, I'm stalling.
And he's doing a fantastic job.
I knew. I admit it. And for those that say, okay, time for you to sit down, well, not quite. Questions? How many are here? Let's do a little quick survey. How many are here to look to how many are homeowners already? Okay. A few. All right. So everybody else are renters. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to get out of the rental deal. Right? Because that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That's money going out and nothing coming back in. When you have, even if you have a mortgage, at least as long as your interest and your taxes are under $10,000, you can write it off. And that allows you to take some deductions on your income taxes. So it really is important to get out as best you can out of.
Sorry.
Commercial break.
Yeah.
Commercial break. So why don't I offer this? We wanted to also make sure that we had information for those that want to be contacted for future programming. So even though Eventbrite has your name all nicely pre-printed, if you don't have your email, if you provide your email, that would be super helpful. And I know that we had a couple of walking guests. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a look and then adding your email nice and legibly, that would be great.
On both lists or just on the
On the
first
one
list?
where if you were a walk-in and you wrote your name in, add your email.
Okay.
Important. That's communication so we can let you know. We're trying our best. We really are trying to bring you information about money. And everybody has an interest in money. But it's amazing how difficult we seem to make it. Because when I say how many have a budget, a physical write-down budget, and you know right now how much money you spend on food. Right? Most of us don't. Because we just go to the grocery store and buy the food. Right? But we don't have, you need to manage your money just like the bank manages their money. It's that kind of simple. And if you're not, then money is going out of the window, and you'll never see it again. And one of the things that got us going on this, was Martin McDonald, who is the co-chair of the committee. About 2 years ago, he was president of the NAACP here in Peekskill, and he had a goal for that year to get more minority people involved in investing. Because you can have your money make money when you're investing your money. But one of the things I brought up was you have to have money to invest. If you don't have any money, you just can't. So that's how we got on to, let's talk about budgeting. Because if you can budget your money, then you can allocate a little piece of money each pay period and put it aside, and that becomes your little nest egg to start building towards having money to invest. And while I did that, he assigned it to me. But I found a chart. It was 52 squares, and each square had a different number in it, anywhere from $2 to $64. And the idea behind the chart was, if each week, 52 weeks, if each week you checked off one of those boxes and took that amount of money and put it aside, at the end of the year you'd have $1,000. It's that simple. But you have to do it. You can I can give it to you, but if you don't use it, because it becomes a habit, it has to be something that you, just like you eat, you got to start thinking about putting that money aside and finding a bank. Now, savings accounts don't give you too much money on interest, right? A couple of percentage points. But a couple of percentage points is better than none. So, and we did a little exercise in the last session about going and looking up to find banks that gave the highest interest. And if you find that bank or that financial institution, it then allows you to get as much as you possibly can out of it. Okay? But it's important. I can't stress enough. It is important for for everyone, but it's equally as important to all the young folks. Equally. Some of us that are over the, no, I'm not over the hill yet. What am I about to say? I'm about to talk about myself. Wait a minute. Those of us that are a little further along the journey, how's that? That would work better? Yeah. We have more of a challenge because it says we want, we're not going to be a millionaire. I'm not going to make $1 million out of it. But if I could make $500,000 and I can give it over and get my grandchildren involved, everybody gets it, right? That's the way. That's how you kind of have to look at it. You may not be able to get there, but clearly you have folks behind you. Or if you're so far ahead, you can give it to me. I'll gladly accept it. Right, Dwight?
Yes, sir.
All right. How are we doing?
I think we're good.
Praise the Lord. And so.
We're going to do it a little manual today, but I think we shall be okay.
Okay. So let me tell you about your presenter this month. Martin and I met her about 2 months ago, maybe?
Yep.
Maybe 2 months ago. And we met at the 202 Diner.
Okay.
That's how informal this meeting was.
Don't tell the secrets now.
But after that meeting, both Martin and I both were so impressed with her, with the information she had, with her knowledge, with her experience, that we said we've got to get you in tuned and plugged into this economic empowerment process. And so Mia Shervington,
That is me.
she is going to take you through the process. A lot of information. I suggest if you have paper, make sure you start taking some notes, because you can't absorb. Your brain is a wonderful thing, but you cannot keep everything in your head. Technology is there for you to Google and so forth, and I'm sure she'll talk about it. And with that, I'm going to step off and I present to you Mia.
Thank you. But I know the information that Bill just provided is really, really, really critical, because it's important to understand and have financial literacy if you're going to take the step into home ownership. So, like Bill said, I'm Mia Shervington. I'm a licensed real estate agent here in Westchester County. I work out of Yorktown. And today we're going to talk about getting from wanting to having, how to finally get in touch with owning a home of your own. I know some of you did have an opportunity to complete the questionnaire that was sent out last night, and I believe everyone in here is either renting or living with family. I don't think I have any homeowners. Is there anyone in here who owns? Oh, a handful. Okay, awesome. This program is good for not only people who are first-time home buyers, but people who already have a home and want to purchase or upgrade to another one. So with that being said, thanks to the NAACP and the team from the Economic Empowerment Committee, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. I'm going to discuss how I can help you and how others can help you through this process. So for today's agenda, we're just going to do a brief overview of the home buying process, the down payment assistance programs, and also how an agent can help you navigate the process. We'll also talk about your support team. You have financial advice given to you by your mortgage providers. You have legal advice given to you by your attorneys. And vendors provide you with property condition advice. And that means when you're going through the process and you want to find out if this is the right home for you, you'll reach out to vendors. So what your mortgage provider or your mortgage broker does is they review your financial information. They identify the available options that you have available to you based on your specific financial circumstance. They'll pre-qualify you for a loan, because before we get into the home buying process, we have to know how much house you can afford. Nobody wants to go looking at houses, find a spectacular house for $375,000, and the bank says, oh, well, wait a minute, we can only loan you $340,000. Nobody feels good after that. So we want to make sure before we even start looking at houses that we have a clear idea of what you're comfortable spending, because nobody wants to eat cornflakes for dinner every night. So once you find a home, we love it, we negotiate the offer, everything is wonderful, that's when the attorneys step in. and they provide you all your legal advice. Your real estate agent is not capable of giving you financial, legal, or tax advice. By law, we're not allowed to do that. That's why these people get paid the big bucks. So your attorney will review the terms of the sale to make sure that everything on paper is what we agreed to. Like if it said that you're going to get a washer and dryer, it's in the contract. You're going to get that washer and dryer. We'll discuss all the contents of the contract. When the person is going to move out, when you're going to get keys and access, what stuff are they leaving, what stuff are they taking, what the boundaries of the property are. If the listing says it's 1/4 of an acre, is it really 1/4 of an acre? And they'll coordinate the title review. Title review is when you own a home, your name goes on the deed. That means you have ownership of that land and that physical property. When the attorney runs a title review, they need to make sure that the only people who are selling you this home are the people that are on the deed. There's no miscellaneous cousins down south who have access to the property. Nobody's in the Dominican Republic saying, that's my auntie's house, I own a piece of this, she left me in the will. So what the title review does, it looks at all of the ownership interests and the company insures it. And they take the onus to say, all right, John and Mary Doe are the only 2 legal owners of the property. We promise that to you, and we'll insure it to you. So if 10 years down the line, someone pops up and says, I'm so-and-so's daughter, I have rights to this property, that's on them, because that was their job to find out if anybody else had ownership interest. Because once you take possession, then you and your heirs become legal owners of that land and property. Yes?
Does that include also if there's like a lien on the property, like your own money?
Yes, the title review will show all liens and encumbrances. And they'll facilitate the property transfer. So that means they process all the paperwork to make sure that the house goes from John and Mary Doe to you at that point. Then you have your vendors. You have home inspectors. When we put in an offer on a property, before we say, yes, we want to buy it, we want to make sure that what we're buying is what we're seeing. So we have insect inspection. So you might have a termite inspection. You might have a radon inspection. A lot of properties have basements or anything that's below ground, and the rocks give off a gas called radon. Elevated levels have been shown to pose some health issues. So we want to make sure that if there is a problem with radon, it's identified and it's mitigated. Appraisers. We want to make sure just because someone says, I want to sell you my house for $300,000, it's really worth $300,000. So an appraiser is an independent third party. They have no relationship to the buyer or the seller. They're sent out by the bank because the bank is the one that's giving you the money. And they look in a half-a-mile radius to see what other properties have sold that are similar to the one that you're buying. And if it looks like the price is about right, then you'll be able to meet the appraisal condition and they'll give you a loan. If it looks like you're overpaying, and it has happened, they'll say, no, this property is not worth $400,000. It's only worth $380,000. At that point, there's 2 options we can take. We can go back to the seller and say, hey, the appraiser says this house isn't worth $400,000. We'll give you the $380,000 that it's worth. Or you can say, I love this house. I really want to live on a hill and it's next door to my cousin and I gotta have it. I love willow trees and it's got 3 of them in the backyard. I'll pay the $400,000. The bank is only going to give you a loan up to the $380,000. So you're going to have to come out of your own pocket for that remaining $20,000. So you can buy a house that's priced over appraisal, but the bank will not give you the money to make that purchase. And mitigation companies, I talked about that a little bit because there's radon mitigation. If you find mold in the basement, we have a lot of older houses that had water in them at some point. And if you see black mold, that's very dangerous. So if we need to have mold mitigation come in, then that's something that can also be negotiated. Is that something that the seller is going to pay for? Is that something you'll pay for and get a credit back at closing for? So that's when your agent steps in, your legal team steps in, and we figure out how we're going to cover the cost to get that done. Because these folks don't work for free. So in order for them to do the work, they have to get paid in advance. So those are just some of the people that work with you through the process. All right, now everybody here wants to own a house, but I'm going to go through why it's important to be a homeowner. And I want you to consider if it's the right decision for you for right now. Yes, it's important to own a home, but no one should buy a home just because it's the in thing to do or everyone says it's the right thing to do. And when you consider the wealth building aspects of home ownership, the pride in owning your own home, and the legacy that you can pass on through home ownership, those may outweigh some of the cons, but we'll go through them just so that you can be aware. Wealth building. You build equity. Does anybody know what equity is?
What you got?
What you got?
Money, basically, wealth.
Your assets minus your liabilities.
There you go. Equity. When you own a house, it can go both ways. If I buy a house today for $300,000, over time, I'm hoping that property values will what? Okay, when property values go up, even though I only paid $300,000 in my house is now worth $350,000. So that spread between what I owe to the bank and what my house is now worth is called equity. That's money you can pull out of the house if you want to do repairs, go on vacation, pay for college, or you can just continue and hold on to it. And as Bill mentioned, you can possibly use it for investment purposes down the line as long as your return is higher than any interest that you're paying on the equity. So the goal in home ownership is to buy low, sell high, because then you make more money. It's a long-term investment. So over time, your mortgage payments can be reduced to zero. And I can tell you that because last month I made my last mortgage payment. It was 15 years of no vacations, no manicures and pedicures. But when I wrote that last check and I got a phone call from the bank, I was just telling the story before we got started, where a week after I made the payment, I see on my phone, like, what? Why is HSBC calling me? I pick up, hello? Hi, is this Mia Shervington? Yeah. Hi, we saw that you made your last payment. I said, yes. We just called to say congratulations. I'm not used to that from a bank. I'm used to them saying, it is the 16th and we haven't seen your payment yet. So, and that's something, it was a struggle. It wasn't easy. There's a lot of things I did without. I don't have an iPhone 10. I don't drive a brand new car. You know, my car is 10 years old. My phone, I'm not even going to tell you because I'm embarrassed, but it works. But, you know, there's some things that we said, what we did is we opted into a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30-year mortgage, so that even though we'd struggle a little bit now, from this point forward, I don't have to cover a mortgage payment. So I can stay in this house forever and just cover my $6,000 a year in annual tax. Or my daughter will stay in that house forever. And she will pay however much the tax is. And hopefully, because I'll make sure I'll write something in the terms that she can't sell it either. And then we'll get to that too. But so over time, and it's just, in the beginning, it's not going to seem like a lot. Because in the beginning, the way mortgages are amortized, amortization is when the bank gives you a bunch of money, they don't break it up evenly and say, oh, okay, we'll give this a little bit to your principal balance. Your principal balance is exactly how much you owe. And then there's interest that you pay on top of that to the bank. So that's the interest rate that you hear a lot in commercials and in bank promotions. They don't spread it evenly over 15 or 30 years. They top load it. So the first couple of years, all you're paying is interest. And they do that because we have a 7-year move rate. On average, people move every 7 to 10 years. So they're saying to themselves, for 7 to 10 years, this person's going to be paying me $1,000 a month, $1,000 a month, $1,000 a month, and paying just $100 towards the equity, to the debt that they actually owe. So they keep banking on like, oh yeah, move in 7 years, please, because they get all the money they loaned you back practically, plus all the interest you were paying for those 7 years. So like I said, it's a slow race, but it's a race worth winning, because once you hit the hump, then it's all principal. My last 3 years of mortgage payments, I only paid about $45 worth of interest per month. Everything else was principal. So the longer you stay in the house, the more equity you build through your payments. Property values can increase. We touched a little bit about that before. Hopefully, with the market, right now in Peekskill, we're really high. So if you bought a house in Peekskill a few years ago, well, I bought my house in 2001. My house is now worth $280,000 more than what I paid for it.
Wow.
But my next door neighbor, who bought her house 5 years after I did, her house still isn't worth what she paid for it. So the market ebbs and flows. So we have up markets, we have down markets. Ideally, you want to buy in a down market. Peekskill right now is in a time of resurgence. There's a lot of building going on in Peekskill. There's a lot of PR where people from the city who are used to paying, $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 for a house, when they come up here and they see they can get a 3-bedroom townhouse for $289,000, they're like, "We're just put in the offer. I'll do it right now." And I'm being dead serious. Because in the past month, I've had 3 clients where a property was listed on Monday. By Thursday, there was an accepted offer. So I have a client right now. House went on the market on Friday. We went to see it Friday night. We put an offer in on Saturday morning. Accepted offer Saturday morning. Sunday, we got a call to say 4 more people want to buy it. What do you want to do? So you hope that values will increase. So in this market in Peekskill, property values are going up. That's not to say that if there's some kind of financial disaster or something else goes on, the values won't drop, but you have to buy smart. You have to buy someplace where you'll consider staying there for the long term. If it's a quick flip, if you're watching a lot of HGTV and you buy a house and flip it real quick, you really have to make sure you have a sense of what the community is going in, what the property values would stabilize at. So it's looking at statistics, so you really need to work with an agent or someone who's familiar with the area to understand that. Some of the cons. It is a long-term commitment. If you're a transient, if you like moving every 2 or 3 years, maybe owning isn't for you. Because like I mentioned, you're paying mostly interest those first few years. So on top of the interest, you're also paying real estate tax, you're paying for water, you're paying for sewer. A lot of things as a renter you don't really think about as a property owner. Those are additional costs in addition to your mortgage and your interest payments. Property values can decrease. We just went over that. And foreclosure risk. Nobody's going to know what's going to happen tomorrow. You could lose your job. You could have a medical emergency. You could have a family member that you need to relocate quickly and urgently in need of your help. You can't call the bank and say, "Look, I'm going through a rough time. Can you reduce my mortgage payment by $1,000 so I can make sure I stay on top of things?" That's a process called loan modification. And that's up to the bank's discretion whether they're going to allow you to modify the terms that you agreed upon when you bought the house. Because they say, "Yeah, we understand you're having a hard time, but when you were all excited about those willow trees in your backyard, you were willing to say you'd pay us $350,000 back if we gave you the money." So you have to understand that if you do get into some hardship, you'll have to work with the bank to either change the terms of your loan, consider selling your loan, or some people who don't want to deal with the stress, they walk away. And then they just let the bank take the house. And that's why you see sometimes bank-owned foreclosures and what I call zombie houses, people who are like, "You know what, I don't need the stress of it all, just take the stupid house." And they walk away, but then nobody's responsible for the house. So the grass looks all crazy, and it's an eyesore to everyone in the neighborhood. So those are the pros and cons of home ownership. It's yours. Unlike being a tenant, you can paint, you can garden, you can put purple carpet in if you want. You do whatever you want. You can take pride in knowing that it's yours and it belongs to you. And we talked about this a little bit. You can pass it on. A home is a willable asset. When you can pass it to your heirs, you can pass it to a family friend, you can make the determination of who will take that property on. If there's debt that's associated with that house, then that has to also be laid out in the terms of probate if you pass away or something of that nature. But if it's paid for, you can give the house to whomever you want. Someone that's your best friend if you don't have kids or what have you. But it's an asset that belongs to you. So what's holding you guys back from buying a house? Anybody?
Money.
Mine is fear.
Fear. That, you know what? That's real, and I thank you for saying that, because that is something big.
That down payment.
That down payment. I don't know how I knew that's what y'all gonna be talking about. How to find the money. How you can find your dream home and fund it without that hurdle of coming up with 20% down. Because frankly, I never in my life had $80,000 sitting in the bank just waiting for me to write a check. I would love for that to be the case. If any of y'all can hook me up, well, no. I did have a friend that hit the lotto, and that's how my mother bought her first house.
Wow.
But if it wasn't for that, she would have never been able to get access to home ownership. So there's popular options. And then there's the NAACP option, which is what we're all here today to talk about, and I'll go into that in great detail. Some popular options, if you don't have 20% to put down, you've got FHA loans, VA loans, grant programs, and conventional loans with reduced down payment. A FHA loan, you only have to put 3.5% down, which on most houses in this area, you can estimate that to be $10,000 to $15,000. If you're looking for a smaller condo, it'll be less than 10, but it's only 3.5%. The interest rates are a little bit lower than conventional interest rates, and the credit terms are less stringent with conventional loans, but they attach what's called PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. If you don't put 20% down, the bank wants to protect themselves from you foreclosing and they're losing out on collecting the money that they owe. So they give themselves an insurance plan and they make you pay for it because their feeling is if you default, it's your fault, so they need to be protected. So PMI is added in addition to your principal and interest payment. So that PMI can vary depending on what your balance of your loan is. But generally, it can be a couple $100s a month, depending on what the terms of your lender are.
But does that stay the whole entire time?
That stays until you have 20% equity in the house.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean you have to pay them 20%. If the market goes up and now your house has about 20% equity, so if your house is worth about 20% more than what the bank loans you, all you got to do is call them up and let them know. They'll have an appraiser do a drive. They call it a drive-by appraisal, where someone doesn't have to come in your house. They just assess the outside to make sure that it's not, burned down or exactly, and make sure. Yes.
So I have a question. So I've gotten pre-approved, and the idea that I've gotten was somebody said when you go through an FHA loan, the PMI stays on now for the extent for the
They're trying.
of the loan.
Yeah, they're
When
trying
you have
to change.
conventional, it is, to 20%. So in my situation, if I'm trying to go buy a place, my PMI would be higher in a conventional loan than it would be in a FHA loan. But, the conventional loan at 20%, it'll then come off, where the FHA loan now it won't. That's from here. Is that true?
Yes, it is true. And as a matter of fact, one of the mortgage providers that I work with, he is working with legislators to stop that, because that's not fair that PMI lasts for the extent of your loan, because ultimately that's saying they want you to end up refinancing at some point to be able to get out of having to pay that PMI.
Okay.
And that's generally what people do at some point. And it could be because interest rates change. It could be because there's a better loan product out there. But generally, for people to get out of PMI, if they're in a situation where PMI is attached for the life of the loan, they refinance once they're able to get into something conventional or a better program. VA loans fund 100%. If you're a veteran, there are programs out there that can get you into a house without you putting any money down at all. Grant programs, Westchester Residential Opportunities, and I know a lot of you are taking great notes. I'm going to send a lot of contact information for these organizations after the presentation. You may not get it this afternoon, but definitely the weekend. They have a lot of programs that you may be able to qualify for, so it's worth giving them a call. And conventional loans with reduced down payment. Citibank, Chase, a lot of the standard banks that we've worked with on a day-to-day basis have a lot of community funding programs. so that they can put money back into the community and get the community up and running and thriving. So they have also implemented programs that don't require a 20% down payment. Cool. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about NAACP, the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. It's a nonprofit organization. It's HUD approved. And what they did is they went to battle because when we had that financial debacle, they didn't think it was fair that banks took advantage of people who took out mortgages that they should not have been able to take out. Predatory lending is real. And it was real in some specific communities, especially, where they gave people loans that they knew were going to fail, and ultimately people lost their homes. So they took action. They actually went to CEOs' homes and camped out and told them, it's not right, give us our houses back. And they put pressure on enough banks that billions of dollars was funded into this program to fund a loan program that would make it affordable for people who are low and moderate income. We'll go over, it's called the Best in America Mortgage. We'll go over some of the details about that. I'll tell you how it works, the process of how you got to get it done, and the Achieve the Dream event, where you can get all of the qualifications done in one day coming up in June. Yes, sir?
Good morning, ma'am. I'd just like to know, maybe I missed it, how long has the NAACP been around?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
I'm going to show you a quick video that'll explain to you everything that the program's about. So let's make sure this on. It would help if that was turned on, wouldn't it? There we go.
Is a non-profit organization whose mission is to end financial exploitation to change the federal labor law.
Strong enough to challenge the law, strong enough to change a stupid law that says we have no right to negotiate what's good for our families.
In 1990, President Bush changed the federal labor law that hadn't been changed in more than 20 years. And for the first time, a local union was responsible. Now, unions could negotiate to provide down payment and closing cost assistance to workers to make homeownership a reality for working people. We know it's going to be business. The NAACP goal is to set a standard for the country. But if you're going to be out there fighting the financial predators, you've got to take on the big ones. You can't take the easy road. But that sends a message to the institutions out there that says, so NAACP takes you on, we're going to do whatever it takes to win.
When you own a piece of the rock, when you own your neighborhood, you rise up and drive the parasite out because you have that power. We have that power.
NAACP was the first to spearhead campaigns against predatory lenders. It coined the term predatory lending. Lenders set up borrowers to fail through high interest rates, outrageous fees, and unreasonable terms. Whether it's called loan sharking, subprime lending, or payday lending, the fundamental issue remains the same: the taking from working people and minorities to benefit the wealthy. This is a continuation and expansion of the wealth disparity gap.
How many of you are ready to take the blood-sucking profiteers on? How many of you are down for the fight?
The first target was the largest and most aggressive predatory lender, Fleet Bank. They cut off credit to minority communities while providing lines of credit to loan sharks.
We're saying you're going to meet with me. Saying you're going to have your best.
In Georgia, where Fleet Finance is based, more than 20,000 borrowers think those sales look more like fins. The fins of loan sharks.
There really were substantial abuses within the industry which wound up causing people to lose their homes for no legitimate reason.
It is a wake-up call in Congress. This nationwide battle took 4.5 years. It included demonstrations and confrontations wherever Fleet was active. We won the war.
It is welcome news for us that it's decided to embark on this program to commit $8 billion for community lending.
As part of the victory, Fleet not only pledges $8 billion to add to its community lending, but contributes millions to settle lawsuits and funds $140 million to establish NAACP's Best in America mortgage program. NAACP also convinced Congress to pass new legislation.
I have prepared legislation that will provide an important first step towards filling in the gaps in consumer protection. It's called the Home Ownership and Equity Protection Act of 1993.
The next target was Barnett Bank and its predatory subsidiary, Equicredit.
The group says it's a grassroots organization that uses persistence to force banks to change their lending practices. In Jacksonville, the bank they targeted is Barnett.
We believe in confrontation, we believe in being at the banks wherever they go. We go to the annual meetings, we go to the annual meeting, we go to where they make presentations, and we have a long attention span.
Barnett succumbs to the pressure. NAACP exposes and changes Barnett's predatory subsidiary, Equicredit, and Barnett funds $20 million to the NAACP mortgage. First Union was next. In 1995, it was one of the nation's largest lenders and one of the most racist.
He calls himself a bank terrorist, but he uses words, not bombs.
A protest is planned to borrow against one of Charlotte's biggest banks, First Union.
First Union has some of the worst minority lending practices. Fast Eddie is First Union Chief Executive Ed Crutchfield, and he's getting a lot of attention. These people say First Union stands out, and this battle is getting personal. First Union CEO Ed Crutchfield is on protesters' wanted dryers. They don't respect working people because they want to lend to their own.
NAACP forces First Union to lend to minority borrowers, and it funds $150 million to the NAACP mortgage. CEO Ed Crutchfield, the target of the campaign, is personally impacted.
One-time investigation. It manufactures some of the most popular cars in America. Ford, quality is job one. But there's another side of the Ford Motor Company you may not know about.
Ford is absolutely a loan shark.
Ford is one of the largest money lenders in the country, and workers inside the company say it uses aggressive tactics to put people into debt.
Wouldn't say what a sucker. Cha-ching. We just made the company some money. They eat you up and they spit you out. That's Ford Motor Company. A lot of people are getting fed up with Ford. In Atlanta, thousands packed a church to bear witness against the way they say Ford does business.
They have ripped off our community. They have stolen the wealth out of our neighborhood.
This man is also going after Ford. Bruce Marks, a community activist who has pressured corporations to make available more than $1 billion in low-cost mortgages.
Remember that name, Ford Motor Company? They're vicious. I had a loan with them, 2 banks, and it's 24% interest. That's 24.
NAACP is also victorious against Ford. It reduces interest rates for hundreds of thousands of borrowers, funds $100 million to the NAACP mortgage, and divests the associates, then the country's largest finance company. While we won those battles, we recognize that the power of greedy lenders, investors, rating agencies, and others, supported by the government, created a predatory lending wave that could not be stopped. The mortgage and financial crisis was coming, since homebuyers were being lured into mortgages that were structured to fail. On September 12, 2000, Bruce Marks testified in Congress, warning lawmakers.
With asset control,
Marks was one of the first to predict the crisis, which would have a devastating impact on homeowners and communities nationwide.
participation in these schemes by the GSEs poses potential risk for the housing and banking industry and for the economy in general.
By 2000, Mark's prediction came true. millions of people were unable to make their monthly payments and were at risk of foreclosure.
Predatory lending has come back with a vengeance.
On August 23, 2007, at the National Press Club in D.C., NAACP announces a campaign against Countrywide.
We're back. And now the fight is going after the biggest player out there, and that is Countrywide Financial.
At the time, it was considered untouchable and the gold standard in lending.
They're demanding Countrywide save face and their homes by rewriting mortgages.
NAACP got what it demanded. Countrywide signed a legally binding agreement with NAACP to reduce interest rates and outstanding principal amounts, making their predatory mortgages affordable. Countrywide participates in NAACP's Save the Dream events to modify mortgages. NAACP's next target, Bear Stearns.
The chant Main Street, not Wall Street. Angry homeowners today storming the Bear Stearns building in Manhattan.
Let's make sure that they hear it. Let's swear and we're scared. It's an unprecedented giveaway of taxpayers' money. Why should our hard-earned money be used to benefit and subsidy the people that created the mortgage crisis?
Bear Stearns signs a legally binding agreement with NAACP to reduce interest rates and outstanding principal amounts, making their predatory mortgages affordable. Bear Stearns participates in NAACP's Save the Dream events to modify mortgages. At the backbone of NAACP's aggressive nonviolent advocacy is to hold the decision makers personally responsible for their actions.
We want her! We want her! We want her! We want her!
Herb Allison, CEO of Fannie Mae, which sets the industry standard for lending, was confronted by NAACP as we blocked their main entrance.
Look us in the eye. Don't look at your bottom line. Look us in the eye and see what you've done. And we're going to make you responsible for what you've done. And you're going to bring some solutions to the table.
Fannie Mae signs a legally binding agreement with NAACP to reduce interest rates and outstanding principal amounts, making their predatory mortgages affordable. Fannie Mae participates in NAACP's Save the Dream events to modify mortgages.
They are on the verge of losing their own homes, so they decided to move in here. William Fry, a hedge fund manager who is trying to stop people from renegotiating subprime mortgages and avoiding foreclosure. Fry is suing Bank of America to keep it from issuing these new affordable loans to owners in need.
We work hard to buy these loans, and then we got checkers who these predatory loans, and now we can't afford them. They don't want to help us. The lenders say they don't want to modify loans because they're afraid of being sued by no fraud. But we say fraud needs to be afraid that people who are aware of who live.
Bill Fry's lawsuit fails. He stops his advocacy against homelessness.
They're causing financial violence on us. So it's important that we see where the winners live. This is John Mack's house. John Mack, he's the CEO of Morgan Stanley. They own Saxon Mortgage. And Saxon Mortgage services hundreds of thousands of mortgages, and they refuse to restructure those mortgages to make them affordable over the long term. We're going to do a picket line around his house. Let's go. Yeah, we're going to do it.
They know who we are. They've seen who we are. They know who we are. It's almost like, take a look at me. I'm your problem now.
I gotta call my cell phone 20 minutes later, but we want to work this thing out.
This is like a rise of the proletariat. We've seen this before historically, but certainly not recently in our country.
Well, I'm going to say that we were disciplined, organized, and we pierced that veil. We pierced that comfort level that they have. The $400 million buys them privacy. No longer.
Saxon Mortgage signs a legally binding agreement with NAACP to reduce interest rates and outstanding principal amounts, making their predatory mortgages affordable. Saxon participates in NAACP's Save the Dream events to modify mortgages.
So
outstanding principal amounts, making their predatory mortgages affordable. Chase participates in NAACP's Save the Dream events to modify mortgages. With legally binding agreements with all the major lenders and investors, NAACP did what no one else thought possible. We organized massive events at convention centers nationwide, providing same-day solutions for homeowners with unaffordable mortgages.
So what I do is I take your mortgage payment and I reduce it by the total deficit that you have.
These events, taking place over at least 5 days each, attracted tens of thousands of homeowners at risk of foreclosure. At each event, NAACP counselors teamed up with lenders, who had hundreds of staff on site to provide affordable solutions.
It's a good thing for the banks. We do the work for them. It's a win-win situation.
Saving homes and saving lives.
It's a last-ditch effort for hundreds of homeowners on the verge of foreclosure. 1,000 people wait in line downtown in hopes they can save their homes.
Thousands of people fighting to keep their homes from foreclosure. It's become a nearly insurmountable challenge.
You can see there are thousands of people. They're expecting tens of thousands of people here to get help. People are spending the night outside in the cold and rain, hoping to hold on to their homes yesterday and camped out in order to guarantee their spot. They're losing their homes. Thousands, pleading with lenders who are hoping to catch a break.
People from different walks of life, all in the same predicament.
The country are converging on South Florida. They're looking for help to stay in their homes.
We are faced with the level of strain and suffering the foreclosure crisis is creating. Families will no further than daily living.
We are inside the convention center where the
This could be the last chance to save it. This facility is packed with people looking to refinance their mortgage and save.
Wow, Diana, look at that crowd behind you. It's unbelievable. Just take a look around. Look at it. Friday night, what are you doing? Look at what these people are doing, and they will probably leave here first. Really, a mobile servicing center. Plans are being made to take it on the road across the country.
This is the devastation that these banks have caused. No one should have to be sleeping here overnight, staying 24, 48 hours just to save their home. Everybody who's tried to work with the banks has failed. And this is the consequence. This is like a war zone. And it's a war zone in America.
Despite the opposition from government and others, the results were extraordinary. Over 144 Save the Dream events, more than 250,000 homeowners at risk of foreclosure obtained affordable same-day solutions, and many more obtained modifications through NAACP's Home Save program. Homeowners were able to reduce their interest rate to as low as 2%, and sometimes lower their outstanding principal, saving hundreds and often more than $1,000 in their monthly mortgage payments.
My mortgage was $4,200 and it's now $2,100.
Saving me $1,000 a month.
My monthly payment has been reduced $3,000.
Wow.
It's amazing. Thank you.
They brought our interest rate down from 10% to 2%. We're saving $1,100 a month on our loan.
For NAACP, I won't be this happy today.
My mortgage payment used to be $2,235, and now they lowered it to $1,305. And you guys just hold on. There is help, and there is hope at the end of the rainbow.
There is a CRA protester who spent 4 years harassing a bank and bank's president. Finally, the bank craters and gives them $1.4 million, gives them $200,000 to set up their organization. They now got 20 offices, lending $3.5 billion.
A decade later, NAACP has more than 50 offices nationwide, and major lenders have committed more than $13 billion. We provide the best mortgage in America. No down payment, no closing costs, no perfect credit, and always at a below market fixed rate.
My interest rate is 2.75. I bought it down by 1%. And my monthly payment is $1,132. My interest rate is 1.75%. I pay $628 a month. Brought down my interest rate to 2.875, and my payment is $675 a month.
The interest rate is 1.75. And my payment is $902.
Interest 12%, and I'm paying
$710 a month.
I have an interest rate 0.87 and I pay $580.
My interest rate was 3.5. I paid $686 a month.
NAACP is absolutely the real deal.
I have a mortgage payment of $615. Being this young and going in on a house purchase by myself, I didn't think that was possible. But NAACP is truly amazing.
I've been in America for 10 years now, and this is probably the first American dream I've experienced.
I really did get my dream home. It was everything. Thank you.
Bank of America has been our largest partner over more than 20 years. In 1995, it committed $500 million to the NAACP mortgage. 4 years later, $3 billion. Another $3 billion 4 years after that, and in 2011, it raised their commitment to $3.5 billion. In total, $10 billion to help minority and low-income borrowers afford homes.
Identifying qualified applicants, giving them the financial management skills they need, creating a financial safety net for those who need a little help in crisis. That the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America was just the department I was looking for.
Loan amount $252. My mortgage payment is $1,250, and just in a year's time, the value of the house has gone up to $340 already. My loan is $200,000. My interest rate is 2%, and my mortgage payments is $0.
Wow.
I own a duplex, and my other renter is covering my cost.
The strongest foundation in the mortgage industry for lending to low and moderate income borrowers. We've added a 15-year mortgage that allows you to build wealth quickly.
105 interest rate for 15 years. It's a blessing. It's fantastic.
Another program allows Section 8 participants to use their Section 8 rental payments as mortgage payments. Called the HOT PHA, it provides unprecedented homeownership opportunities. NAACP continues to develop its state-of-the-art operations with a streamlined mortgage process. There's much more to come as we expand these programs and develop additional financial services products for working people.
I think people take more pride in the community because it's their properties. This is hope. This is light at the end of the tunnel.
NAACP believes in the principle that we are thy brother's keeper. Over the past 30 years, we've won the battles, and together we will continue to win the fight for economic justice. With more than 2 million members, we are a unique and powerful force as we act to make fundamental changes for working people.
And it's not just a house I live, we're actually human beings. I can go home and say, I have a home, thanks to NAACP.
We require people to volunteer.
You need to see a counselor? Just a minute, let me see if I can get someone for you.
In whatever way they feel comfortable.
We funded demonstrations, helping out at the Save the Dream event, helping in our offices, helping getting the word out.
There is no fight that is too big or too small, that together we cannot win.
Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America is one of the greatest homeland programs there is.
Because it can really change the course of your life, the course of life that you create for your family. The greatest program in America, honestly. The door of NAACP are open for you. Go this week, make an appointment, I'll get you home.
Welcome to the NAACP family.
It's time for NAACP. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine for NAACP. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
So did that answer your question?
Big guy.
Yes.
Now, does anybody know of anyone who experienced any issues with getting a mortgage or having their home foreclosed because of predatory lending?
Yeah.
I know.
My mom didn't get, it wasn't foreclosed, but she was part of that predatory lending. and somehow, I don't know if it was I don't know what program she went through, but they got her to lower.
The president, President Obama did help a lot of people with a lot of the loan modification programs that were entered. I'm sorry, for some reason it's stuck on this video, so let's just start up on it fresh one. The internet is timing out, but a lot of people were affected a great deal by how the finance companies were charging them these really, really exorbitant interest rates. And if you're paying 10, 11, 12, 13% on $300,000, you can't get out from underneath that. So the fact that they did come in and their first target was reducing those interest rates so that people didn't have to worry about losing their homes, because ultimately nobody benefits when someone is foreclosed on. The family's displaced. The banks lose their asset because now banks are not in the business of selling houses. So now they have all of these properties that are just sitting vacant. They're paying taxes, they're paying interest, so they're technically losing money on the transaction too while they're waiting to see what's happening. Because so many people thought, oh, the bank just wants my house. They don't necessarily want your house. The bank wants money, but they don't necessarily want your house, because then when they sell it to an investor, they might recoup some of the funds that were due to them, but not necessarily everything.
I have a question. So I've been looking around, the area, and I'm seeing like a lot of properties that I would like to purchase, but a lot of them are in foreclosure. So now when it's time to, even though I have a conventional mortgage, and I'm like, this might be the perfect house for my family, I can't even get it because they're saying, they want cash, or they want,
The reason why they say they want cash is because of the condition of the property. Because if you're going to need to get a mortgage for a property, it has to appraise, and the bank that's issuing the mortgage needs to make sure that the house is viable. And the house that you're purchasing, if it's not viable, your mortgage company says, wait a second, I don't want to guarantee that because I don't know what's going on with that house. That's why some of those transactions are cash-only deals, because they're not in a condition on the inside. The internet is not working. They're not in a condition that the bank is going to be able to say, oh yeah, okay, you can move in next week. If you have cash available to you, then those are risks that you can take without any liability to another entity. So that's really the only big difference in why some of the foreclosures are cash-only deals. But not all of them are. There are some properties that are in great condition. Just depends on how whoever was foreclosed on felt about the bank when it was time for them to leave, what it looked like inside. Because I could tell you, not everybody is happy when it's time to go. So you'll sometimes have plumbing that's an issue. I'll get to you in just a second. Plumbing that's an issue. Walls that may have been destroyed. It could be just cosmetic, but you really never know until you get in the house, because people were doing some really sinister things to properties because they thought they were punishing the bank, but ultimately the person who ended up buying the house got punished, because you're feeling wronged, and in most cases duly so, because you were in a situation that in most cases the bank should not have put you in the first place. But instead of saying, oh, okay, I'll just take it at what it is and move on to my next step, people were pouring cement down drains and messing up plumbing. People were, just really doing some really heinous acts because they were either thinking the bank was going to sell their house and make a whole lot of money on it, or some investor was going to buy it because they had a hardship and flip it and make a fortune, so ha-ha on them. But in actuality, a lot of times it was just people trying to buy a home for their family. And with those kind of properties, there's but so much a property inspection can show you. And until you move in, you don't really know what you're getting. So that was an unfortunate chain of events. Yes?
The houses that are foreclosed on and the bank owns them, like there's a few probably in Peekskill. How can you find out what bank owns that house?
You can talk to a realtor. Most realtors will be able to pull that information up for you, but it's public information. So if you go to the county website, you can put in any address in Westchester County, and it'll tell you what it's not there.
It's showing the prior owner. Nobody knows who owns this house, this particular house that I'm picking up. And I've even asked the people who come to winterize it. They don't know the bank. They only know the company that they work for.
They know the service provider.
Correct.
Talk to me, because in addition to being a real estate agent, before I started doing that, I was a real estate investor. I flipped properties for a living. And then I was working with people during the financial crisis to help them modify their loans and do short sales. That was my specialty. And as I was going through the process, I could not understand why banks weren't approving some of these modifications, because it seemed obvious to me, if no one's going to pay $400,000 for this house, we have an offer, someone's willing to pay $360 for it, you're not getting any money, take the $360, everybody's happy. And there were hedge funds behind the loans instead of some of the major banks. And, you know, someone who's making minimum wage keys in some numbers, it pops up that it doesn't meet the criteria, so your modification was denied. So I took that to heart, especially with a lot of the clients that I had, because a lot of them were older people who had adjustable rate mortgages, so their mortgages were really, really, really low. In that 7 years, all of a sudden their interest rates jumped, and they were in these situations where they couldn't afford their houses. So after battling with the banks and battling with the banks and battling with the banks, I decided to be the bank. So what I do now is, in addition to being a real estate agent, I buy mortgage notes. So I go out to hedge funds, and for people who are facing foreclosure, it's called a non-performing note. So if you're facing foreclosure, you're not paying your mortgage, I will buy that mortgage note from the bank. And then I will have my service team reach out to you and say, look, I know you haven't paid your mortgage in 2 years, the mortgage payment was too high, how much can you pay? Sounds reasonable to me? Okay, fine. I say yes. I don't have 14 people in the back office, but in that process, I've learned to find who owns property, because we have to be able to figure out who owns what in a situation where if I'm going to buy a mortgage note, if I'm trying to find the homeowner to reimburse me for payment, or if I need to foreclose, if I can't find out who owns it, just so I can take possession of it and then sell it to someone else who might want to live in it, there's ways that we can find that. So if there's a particular property you're interested in, just let me know, and I'll be mindful to take advantage of that.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning again.
I'm interested in the multifamily I have my eyes on right now. That's one thing. I'm glad that you spoke about seeing you. The second is, are you an official, I don't know how the NAACP program goes, are you an official NAACP representative?
I am not.
The third question is, where's the nearest NAACP office? Because they said there's 15.
The nearest NAACP office to us is Newark. Newark is the closest office. Newark is our assigned office for the Westchester area. To answer your question, I am not a NAACP employee. I am not a NAACP referral agent. I am an agent that is registered with NAACP. I've gone through NAACP training. I know about their program. And I've taken my personal time to literally go through every neighborhood in Westchester County to determine what neighborhoods are eligible for the NAACP program, which is really one of the hardest parts about being in the program, that you need to know where you can buy a house depending on what the median income of the community is. Oh, yes.
Yeah, you had mentioned short sale, and I wanted to, could you explain what a short sale is?
A short sale is when you buy a house for $300,000, but the market went down, and now your house is only worth $280,000, and you want to sell it, and somebody wants to buy it, but they're only willing to buy it for $280,000, which is what it's worth.
Right.
So we have to go to the bank and ask the bank for permission to now sell it at $280,000 without giving them the $20,000 that you still owe on the mortgage. So they forgive that amount in a short sale. So they're selling it short of what you owe to them.
Do you still owe the money? Do you still owe the money? The difference between what's sold and what's sold?
They used to say that they would come after you for the shortfall. I have never, in my years of negotiating short sales, seen a bank actually go after a homeowner for the deficiency balance. but you may have some tax consequences. I'm not a tax professional. You will have to talk to your tax person.
On the short sale, does it affect your credit?
Yes.
It does affect your credit, but it's not on your credit report.
No.
Depending on your bank, because some banks may report the deficiency and issue a judgment. I personally have never seen that, but there's a credit report that is not like an Equifax credit report that lenders see, and it may show up on that to show your credit worthiness. But that is your FICO. FICO scores are some indeterminate number that no one really understands. No matter who you ask, no one can give you an answer. Equifax can't, Experian can't. Nobody can really explain to you.
But they give you the numbers.
But they'll give you the numbers, exactly.
And make you cry.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk about the Best in America mortgage. There's no down payment, no closing costs, below market fixed rates. You can buy down your interest rate to almost zero. And your credit score is not considered. Perfect credit is not a requirement. They just ask that you be on time with your payments for the past 2 years. Today's rates are 3.875 for a 30-year fixed and 3.25 for a 15-year fixed. You can buy that down. Since you're not putting any money down towards your down payment, you can pay NAACP to make your interest rate a little bit lower. I'll send everybody an overview sheet that'll give you the exact numbers of how it works, but we'll run through a quick calculator. We should have time to be able to do that, just so we can bring up a scenario of how that might work.
Quick question. So Peekskill in itself, is that considered a neighborhood or is it certain sections within?
It's broken up by census tract. So Peekskill has multiple census tracts. All of Peekskill qualifies with the exception of the census tract that includes Chapel Hill, the Woods 3, and Mortgage Hill. But Forest View, Society Hills 1 and 2, Benefield, all up and down in those beautiful homes, that's considered NAACP qualified. When we go over the Bear Mountain Parkway, all of that is considered NAACP qualified. Riverbend is considered NAACP qualified.
What about further south?
Huh?
What about Alstate and Terrytown and those areas? Those also?
There's little pockets because it is broken down by census tract. Because I can find you a house in the Marinette that's census qualified. So it's just a matter of knowing how the blocks are situated and how the census is allocated.
So that may change in 2020.
It could change when they do a new census. So NAACP's mission. There's priority members, priority areas, and loan limits attached. So the mission is to make home ownership affordable for low and moderate income people and communities. That's not race-based. It's not a minority program. It's a program designed for people who are not making over the median income, but if you are making over the median income, they still allow you to participate in the program.
What's the median?
We're going to get to that right now. To be a priority member,
I just want to clarify. So, just thinking about what's considered a NAACP neighborhood, can you just help me understand? So, what actually? So it is.
So a priority member, low to moderate income people with a household income of $78,000 or less, and that's based on Westchester County. Every county is different. So if your family income is less than $78,000, you can buy a house anywhere you want, as long as you can qualify based on your income. But there's no limit to what neighborhood you can buy in. You can buy in any neighborhood you want within your spending limit. So if you happen to find a house in Larchmont or Rye or Purchase that you can afford with less than $78,000, let me know.
And does that matter, like how many people are in the family?
All household members over 18.
So if you're just by yourself and you don't make, then that's fine.
Yep. If you're single, all family members over 18, that's considered your family household income. Priority areas. This is what we're talking about today. Priority areas are areas where the average family income is less than $78,000. And you say, well, how is that possible in areas like Mamaroneck and Rye and, you know, look, down county areas? Because any place where there's a high population of senior housing or renters, that is calculated into the census tract. So the homeowners and people on fixed income are averaged together. So that's why some of those areas lead you to, because right near the mall, the only area in Yorktown that qualifies is near Jefferson Village, next to the mall, because there's a high concentration of senior living there. Loan limits. The loan limit in Westchester County is $726,525. So, if you make a lot of money and you buy an area in a knock-up priority area, you can get a loan for up to $726,000 if you income qualify. If you're buying a multifamily home, $930,000, and that's just for a two-family. If you go up to a four-family, it goes over $1 million for the loan limit. But once again, you have to have the income to be able to qualify. They're not just going to give it to you, so you have to have that kind of income.
So if you make more than $78,000, you still qualify for the program. It's just
you have to buy in priority areas. So you can still buy. Like I said, you can make $300,000 a year if you buy a house in Forest View, off of Route 6. You qualify because it's a priority area.
Does this include land sales only?
This is single-family homes, multi-family homes. I don't believe land is part. I don't believe land is there, but I can double check and let you know. You'll get an overview with all of the details about the program in your email. And the approval amounts are based on your income, but can't exceed the above amounts that are listed there. So even if you made $3 million a year, you can't get more than $726,000 for a single family house. So here's the fun part. Knockup on their website has a mortgage calculator. And I'll send everybody the link to this too. And we're just going to do a quick simulation and then we'll move on, because I don't want to take up too much time with it. So let's just say average house in Peekskill. Let's do our desired purchase price. Let's just say we buy a $300,000 house, just to make it easy. We're going to put no money down, no principal reduction. We're not going to buy anything down. Our taxes in Westchester are really high, so your monthly payment would be. Oh, you can't see. Never mind. I'll have to tell you because I didn't realize you couldn't see the screen. The monthly payment for a $300,000 mortgage with the current interest rate at 3.75 is $21,052, and that's including your property tax. And that would be owning a $300,000 house in Peekskill.
Can you say that again?
Owning a $300,000 home in Peekskill with zero down payment, zero buy down, and paying $763 a month in property tax, your monthly payment would be $2,152. Is anyone paying more than that in rent?
Oh, originally you said 21,000.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
That's not helping. Right.
Thank you. And you can buy down the rate. So the more you buy it down, if you put $10,000 down instead of your interest rate being 3.75, the interest rate would be 2.917. So that would bring down your mortgage payment about $100 a month. So that's just yes.
If you did, I'm assuming that I'm not correct. If you cut that 300,250, would that cut the payment in half, or does that change?
I'll tell you. $1,007.
So
wow.
Wow. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
How does the Section 8 vouchers work into this?
I am unfamiliar with how the Section 8 program works. When you sit down with the housing counselor, they'll go in details over what your monthly payment is and how it will factor into the program. But I can't speak to that. I haven't had that experience working with that program. Yes, sir?
The calculator you had on the screen there, is that available on your website?
It's available on NAACP's website, which is NAACA.com. And like I said, if I have your email address, I'll send you all the links and all the information so that you have it available to you. So there's 10 steps to take to get NAACP qualified. You have to attend a workshop. This is not the workshop. This is an information session. So it's a workshop that's sponsored by NAACP. They do it closest to us. They do it in Jamaica, Queens, and they do it in Yonkers. But I'll tell you about an event that's coming up sometime soon that I think is going to be even better than this situation right here, because you get it all done in one day. You meet with a housing counselor and homeowner preparation team, and they explain to you what it means to buy a house, the responsibilities you'll be responsible for, to prepare you for buying a house. They have what's called a payment shock. So if you're accustomed to paying $1,500 a month, and if you get into a mortgage it's going to be $2,100 a month, they want to see that you're putting that $600 aside, that you can afford that $2,100. So they call that payment shock. And they want to make sure that over a few months you've been building that reserve and that you're able to do that, because they don't want, the goal of this program is not to put you in a situation where you're in an unaffordable mortgage. So they'll go over your mortgage options and the NAACP mortgage just to see which program works best for you. Then they throw you in the hands of a wonderful realtor who happens to live right here in Peekskill and is standing in front of you. But you can choose whatever agent that you'd like to work with. There's just some procedures that they have to go through just to make sure that they're familiar with the program, because there are some inspections that need to take place that are NAACP approved, and some paperwork has to get in, because this is contract to close in 28 days. So from the time you have a signed contract, you can close your loan and move in within 28 days. So they want to make sure everybody is familiar with how the program works and where the paperwork goes. So we find you a house, we love it, it's NAACP qualified. Next step is to get the purchase and sale agreement done, and that's what we talked about earlier, where the attorney steps in to make sure everything is in good order. They have a NAACP approved inspector come out to look at the property to make sure that it will NAACP qualify based on the way it currently sits. Sometimes they will ask the seller to make repairs. Otherwise, they can factor the cost of repairs into the NAACP mortgage. You'll get credit access and bank application, which is just the official processing of your loan. Mortgage processing and underwriting, that's when they go in the back offices and do what they need to do and find out which lender they're going to be using to underwrite your loan. You close, everybody's happy, you get a set of keys, you take lots of pictures, and then you have access to the post-purchase program, which I think, in my opinion, is one of the best assets of this program. If you fall on hard times, there's a team there to help you in that situation so that you don't lose your house. So even after you close, NAACP stands behind you to make sure that your ownership is sustained. So you'll have access to all of that once you become part of the NAACP family. Like I said, there's an Achieve the Dream event. It's coming up on June 27th. I have some handouts here with all the information you see up there. Can you take a few and pass the rest back? Thank you. On the back of that is also my contact information so that you have it also. But at this event, you'll be able to bring the materials that you need. Pay stubs, bank statements, W-2s, any debt that you have, your tax returns if you're self-employed, 12 months of your bank statements, and they will give you your approval on the spot.
Wow.
Okay? So there's no driving back and forth to multiple. You will meet with the housing counselor, you will meet with the mortgage team, you will meet with the people that need to make the decision that day, so that you can walk in, not qualified, and walk out knowing how much you can get in a mortgage and to move forward.
And will they give you some kind of certificate or some kind of statement saying that? Or?
You'll get all that information. They'll run through the whole process with you that day.
How long before it expires, or does it expire?
It does expire. You have to, once you get qualified, you have 4 months. I'm not sure if they're going to be changing it, but as it stands now, you have about 4 months.
Now, if I'm already pre-approved, can I bring that pre-approval letter there and already be done with that, or do I still need to?
You still need to bring all the information. You can bring it with you there, but you should still bring all the information because they'll need to get you done through that system. Yes, ma'am.
Can you combine it with any other grants?
I'm
Like a renovation grant or anything like that in Westchester County?
I'm not sure. You possibly may be able to, but that's something you would have to talk to the mortgage counselor first. I'm going to grab her and then I'll come back to you.
Just a quick question. Earlier on, you said something about 2 years' worth of payments instead of
perfect credit.
Yeah. So, for example, I just got divorced and I don't have that kind of history.
Okay.
You know, should I still try? Or?
I would say try so that I consider it an afternoon well spent. Because even if you go and you don't qualify right away, you'll know what the program can offer you. You'll know how the specifics of the program will work. So I definitely think it's something that's worth going to. I'm going to go, and I'm not looking to buy a house, but I want to go through the process also so that as I'm working with people, I can give them my own experience of this is what they told me based on my situation. I don't know. I might decide to say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and give me a house too. The only problem is you cannot own 2 properties with NAACP. If you already own a house, you have to sell that house in order to purchase a NAACP property. And they do that for 2 reasons, because they don't want investors coming in and getting really low interest rates and flipping these properties. They want to make sure that the people who are there are actually the homeowners. So that's why they do that. Yeah, to keep it, it's a level playing field.
After you purchase a house from NAACP, you can then get a second one?
No, you have to live. It has to be an owner-occupied property. When you leave the property, you have to refinance or sell it. You can't have 2 NAACP loans, or you can't have a NAACP loan and be a non-owner occupant.
If like we're a couple and she owns a house but I don't, now how does that work?
If she's going to be on the mortgage, she's going to have to sell the property, or you may be able to talk to a legal advisor to tell you how to otherwise remove that property from your name.
Does this work for also seniors who are on a fixed income?
As long as they have an income to qualify, yes.
Another question. So let's say you find a home and it needs work. Can you roll and let's say find a house for let's say $250,000, but then it needs maybe another $50,000 and you get pre-approved for let's say $320,000. Can you roll construction costs into the mortgage?
You can roll renovation into the mortgage, but they have a specialty inspection team that will come out and they will tell you what repairs you can cover through the NAACP loan and what repairs would be required by the seller.
Okay.
So, yes.
Yes, it's been very informative. I have a question. Does NAACP, I know you talked about in the beginning that there's conventional programs and there's a NAACP program. So my combination, is there a hybrid where NAACP works with veterans anywhere in there?
Well, and that's why you would speak to the mortgage counselor to look at the NAACP mortgage versus other mortgages, because the veterans mortgage is 100% financing also, so you wouldn't need both programs together. So they would look at the situation to see which program gave you the best benefit, and then you would opt for, of course, the one that would cost you less in the long run.
At the workshop?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know if there are any fees attached to being part of this program?
There are some membership fees. They're nominal. The breakdown will be in the overview that I'm going to send, because I don't want to misspeak off the top of my head. But compared to $8,000 in closing costs, it's not.
NAACP values your ability to be earned by your income that you enter. Does that continue in the future? Meaning, if 5 years I start making all of a sudden $100,000.
It's fixed rate. Once you qualify at that rate stays the same for the term of your mortgage. So you don't have to re-verify income. It's not income qualified like that. The day you qualify and that's the rate that you were given, then that's the rate that stays. If it's the reverse, where you have a loss of income, that's when the post-purchase program comes in and you reach out to the team to see if you can restructure the debt so that you can still keep your home.
Just to be clear, you're paying for the appraisers and the lawyer, correct?
Yes. Those fees are not NAACP related. So with any home purchase program, you do need to cover the cost. The bank appraiser will cover, the bank will cover the cost of the appraiser. So you just have to, that all of that rolls into the cost of the closing.
Well, when you send us the handouts, can you give us a map of the NAACP approved areas? Good try.
I like it though. No, actually, and this comes to working with me. When you work with me, I sit down and I determine where areas you'd like to live in. We find out how much your budget is, and then I will send you a specific link that links those areas so that you'll get an automatic alert if a property pops up in an area that meets your criteria. But that's because I sat down and I did that. That's not something that's widely available.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can always go online and search the government websites and, pop in addresses to see if that address is within the census tract, but I found that to be very time consuming. And if I'm working with 10 to 15 buyers, there's no way we're going to sit down and every time you see a house that comes on the internet, we're like, oh, okay, how about 123 Main Street? No, not that one. Okay, how about 18 Pine Grove? Oh, no. Oh, wait, no, this one. No, not that one either. So I structure a tailored map based on where I know you want to live. Because, to be honest, there are very few areas. Peekskill just happens to be an area that has a lot of beautiful homes in NAACP qualified neighborhoods. But so does Ossining, so does New Rochelle, so does Mamaroneck. So there are Greenberg, White Plains. There are areas down county also. It just takes time to find them. So that's one of the benefits of working with me as opposed to someone else. Is like, have at it. We'll see what happens when you find a house. So.
The video mentioned shark lenders, and we get that NAACP's gonna, will help us with that. But do they have a referred list for like attorneys and things like that, so that the attorney doesn't take advantage of you in the process of the whole lending process?
What do you mean that the attorney take advantage of you?
Well, that they don't,
what kind of situation?
When an attorney comes in, that they don't take advantage of the fee schedule for their portion in the lending process.
Okay, well, the attorney that you hire, you select, and the fees are disclosed before you decide to hire them. And most attorneys have the same fees in this area, but that's something that your agent can refer you to an attorney. Just a working relationship with anybody that's helping you through the process. Usually attorneys are so far outside of their job is to just make sure that the land transfers properly. They're not involved in any of the financing. The only thing they want to make sure with the financing aspect is when we decide when we're going to close, because they have to get a copy of the mortgage commitment from the bank to make sure that you're actually going to get the money in order to close the transaction. But other than that, they're really not involved in the financing aspect.
Just kind of a segue of that. You said that you were a registered agent with NAACP. Are there any other vendors that are registered with NAACP? Like, for example, of that, like.
Well, they ask the agents to go through a training because we're the face with their clients. So we're going to spend a lot of time together looking for houses, and they want to make sure that we know what we're talking about as we're showing you properties, and we're not showing you properties that are unobtainable. Okay. So that's why agents have to go through that kind of training, just so that we're familiar with how the program works. Thank you. No problem. So
you spoke that's in the common reading qualified.
Yes.
I have just one question. At what point do we reach out to you? Is it to look at the houses first and then go through the program, or go through the program first, pre-qualify, and then come to you?
Agents, and I will tell you, it makes better sense to get qualified first, because you need to know how much house you can afford. And that really determines how the home search process will work. And then we can go from there. Because even now, if I take a client out that's doing a conventional loan, before we even look at a house, I need to see your pre-approval. Because it doesn't make sense for everyone to spend valuable time looking at $600,000 houses if you can't get a $600,000 loan. Okay, so my goal is to make the journey to home ownership as seamless as possible, which is why I do the tailored map criteria, which is why we sit down and we go over, do you want 3 bedrooms? Do you really need 3 bedrooms, or you just want 3 bedrooms? Do you want land? Do you really think you want to pay a landscaper, or are you going to get out there and mow the grass every week? Or your kid's going to revolt against you and not want to do that? You know, have you lived in a house that's always had gas? So in Westchester, we have a lot of properties that have oil tanks and wells and septic. So we need to go over what kind of property you want to have so that we can create and tailor a home search that's right for you, so that everybody's time is duly spent. So we got to find the right house. So I'll give you a sample of what's available. Oh, you can't really see it on this. Yes.
I would have to move to change counties.
This property in Society Hill 2 in Edinburgh, just listed this week. It's a beautiful, beautiful unit. Let's see. This NAACP qualifies. I'll show you another one.
What was the price on
The price on that one is $239,999, so $240. And I'm showing 2 people that unit today at 2 o'clock and at 3 o'clock. Yep, it's a 2-bedroom, 2 full bath, 1,200 square feet. Let's see, we got another one. Oh, here, I found one in White Plains for you. This is in a NAACP qualified neighborhood. Whoa. See? So for people who think, oh, I can only get a house in the slums and I don't want some, ramshackle neighborhood. No, not necessarily. As a matter of fact, let's see. Oh, here's a little one in Harrison. So that's a NAACP qualified neighborhood. So don't close your mind to thinking that you can only get a house in a really low income neighborhood that nobody wants to live in, because that's not the case. Does anyone have any questions for me? I think we went through questions for you.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. I probably will get this answered at the workshop, but I'd like to know if you know anything about the volunteer opportunities. Specifically, is NAACP looking for volunteers in this area? How does that work?
You sign up for which volunteer opportunities you'd like to participate. If you want to participate at one of the events that are coming up, then you can volunteer to help people there. A lot of times they have people who've gotten NAACP mortgages to come and give testimony at meetings to talk about how their process went. If there's a protest you want to participate at, and as you mentioned in the video, if you want to help at one of the offices or do something like that, you're open to do that too.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. So if you want to work with me, I have some exclusive rights to represent. It's something that I do to make sure that my time is well spent and your time is well spent. That means we're committed to each other through the process. I am going to work diligently to make sure that we find you a house that suits your needs. And that means that you're not just going to pick up the phone and call every agent if you see a listing just because you think you'll get a better deal. Call the listing agent, because I'll be the one to tell you, you do not get a better deal when you call the listing agent, because the listing agent, his or her responsibility is to the seller, not to you. You don't get a better deal calling that person, because that person is trying to make the most money for the seller, not save you money. That's not how that works. So that's a misnomer that people think, oh, if I call the agent on the listing, then I can get it for a little less. Not necessarily. You might, because if the agent's going to collect commission from both you, the sell side, and the buy side, they may be willing to give up a little piece of their pie, but I don't see that happening very often. So that's why I have a buyer agency agreement. And basically the agreement just says we work together. My commission is 2.5%, but that's not paid by you. That's paid by the seller. Sellers, when they sell a house and they list it, they agree to pay a commission rate. And that commission rate is usually split between the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. But the buyer does not pay that commission. If my commission was, say, 4%, and they're only paying 2.5%, if you were not a buyer agent, I'd say, hey, you have to come up with that extra 1.5% to pay me for all my hard work. A, I wouldn't do that. And B, if you're a NAACP participant, I'm not allowed to charge you anything over and above what the commission rate is listed on the listing. And it just goes on to talk about fair housing. I can't steer you into any particular neighborhood based on your race, your religion, or anything like that. The only thing I can restrict is whether the property you're buying is in an income eligible area. Also that you're going to be living in the property as an owner-occupant. It's going to be your primary residence. This also details that so that I can justify that we're not going to get into any situation where there's home equity theft, where you're just trying to go in as an investor, get somebody's property, flip it, and they're not going to get the benefit of the equity that they had. And at the bottom, it just says that we'll look for single-family houses, townhouses, condos, or whatever you tell me you want to look for. Your price range is determined by your lender. And when you get pre-approved, you just agree to send me those pre-approval details. You get possession of the house at closing. And I highlight this part. You can't read it, but I'll tell you. It says, this agreement can be terminated with written notice without penalty. That means if you're working with me and you're like, she smells, I don't want to work with her. Just write me a little note. Say, Mia, it's been good. It's not working out. It's not you, it's me, whatever. and we will part as friends. There's no fee at all for using my services to process your NAACP application. So if you have any questions, I know it's time for us to wrap up. Let me know. On the back of your Save the Dream flyers is my contact information. Feel free to text me. If you want to sit down and talk to me about some things that you're interested in, that's fine. If anybody wants to read over the exclusive right to represent, I have copies here. So if you do want to work together, you don't have to run out tomorrow and start looking at houses. But what I can do is I'll take this, I'll upload it in the system, and then I can give you a call. We'll have a quick 15-minute conversation, even by the phone. I'll even splurge and buy you some coffee or something. And we'll go over what you're looking for so I can get a criteria map in place so you can start seeing what's coming out. If anybody is interested in the Achieve the Dream event, the event that you have there, I can register you today for the event. So I have the forms here. Phil, can you pass these out? I put the dates and the times at the bottom. If you know what date and time you want, just let me know. I'll get you pre-registered. Oh, yes.
That's what I'm
I like the VA program, but the VA program is
Exactly.
So that's something
a beautiful
You got my phone number, and as a matter of fact, you'll see on the back, there's a text, a code to get my app. If you text that code to that number, I will be in your pocket. So the app will be on your phone, my phone number will be there, you'll be able to contact me whenever you want.
So you're telling us that we not to move.
It's a nationwide program. I just focus on Westchester because that's where I'm licensed and that's where most people are. But I have an agent I can refer you to in Connecticut. But it's up and down. It's nationwide.
Do you work with
I am a veteran, United States Air Force.
I wanted to make a couple of statements. One, this is part of NAACP, Peekskill, the economic empowerment. This is what we're trying to do, is bring you information to help you in your environment to do better. So I hope that that's been accomplished. Watch the NAACP website, because we will be having more sessions put on, more workshops put on. I mentioned earlier about the budgeting workshop and the investing. So keep an eye and come and join us, because there's a lot of information. I also would be remiss in letting you know that the president and the vice president of the Peekskill NAACP chapter are here. The president and vice president. I also want to thank the other members of the Economic Empowerment Committee, Liz and Rhonda, for their support. You've been given a lot of information. You've been given some valuable information. But now it's up to you to act. If you don't do anything with it, then it was just information that was passed to you. I pray that you will move on it, take advantage of this opportunity to take the information, get in touch with Mia. I think you see why Martin and I were very impressed with her the first time we met with her, which is why we brought her breakfast that morning. So thank you all. Have a blessed afternoon.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank you all for participating in this workshop. We have plenty of workshops. It's not just the Economic Empowerment Committee. We have a health committee. We have criminal justice. We have civic engagement. We have a lot of committees that you can be involved in or not. But I encourage you all to be a member of the NAACP. It's $30 for 1 year. There are membership forms at the front. In addition to that, coming up real soon, May 23rd, we're going to have all the candidates that are up for election this year at a forum at the high school. I have flyers for it. I'd like to see all your faces. It involves you. Okay? Just like you see NAACP got involved and said, no, y'all not going to do this. We're going to have affordable housing. We need to hold our officials accountable for what they're doing for us in our community. So I'd like to see you all there on May 23rd. It's at night at 7 o'clock. All right? Thank you all. Mia Shervington, excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Excellent.
I appreciate it.